What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we're talking about John Gibson and whether or not the Toronto Maple Leafs should acquire him. But before we start, if you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I know there's a ton of you guys watching that aren't subscribed. I love doing this. I love making videos for you guys. So like I said, if you are new, I would genuinely appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. But I don't want to waste any more time. I want to get right into it because it's been a big topic of discussion over the last few weeks, at least, about why the Maple Leafs should go out and acquire a new starting goaltender. Now, obviously, the rumors are heating up because the Leafs and Jack Campbell contract talks have kind of been non-existent to the public. Whether or not those are actually happening, we're probably going to hear more and more as the playoffs, aka the Stanley Cup Finals, comes to a close. Whenever we get to that, depending on when you're watching this video, I don't want to spoil anything or not spoil. I don't want to predict any Stanley Cup Final or who the champion is because I have no idea yet. I'm not predicting the future, but I'm not really sure if we're going to hear too much about the contract negotiations because it seems like there hasn't really been a ton. And at least we're not going to hear about it right away, but we're getting closer and closer to free agency, and it's looking more and more like the Jack Campbell camp is looking for over $5 million on a new deal. And this is where Leaf fans started to go, okay, cool, now we're going to upgrade. We need to trade for a starting goaltender, and we need to go after John Gibson. Now, the first thing I need to look at here is the $6.4 million cap hit. Now, we will get into a Leafs cap friendly here in a second, but this is doable. It's doable, but how doable? How can the Leafs get a lot better right now by acquiring John Gibson? How much effort would it take in terms of trading and signing and looking at different guys? How much would it take to even fit him into the salary cap plans? Now, mind you, the Leafs in the summer, they don't need to really operate under the strict $82.5 million cap hit that's going to be this year. Obviously, it's going up $1 million, which is good. Should be in the mid 90s right now, but we know what happened for the last couple of years. But I'm not really sure how good the Leafs cap situation would be if they went after him. Now, the other problem is that Jack Campbell, who's probably going to earn a little bit less money, whose career earnings could potentially be his 1 year of his contract this year, he's played very well and could be getting a little bit less or could be getting pretty close to that number coming off of the $1.6 million. Has had some pretty good numbers with the Maple Leafs, even though he was not the best in the playoffs this year. In 7 games, over a 3 goals against average and a less than 900 save percentage. And for months during the season, he was operating at a just high 800 save percentage, which is really not good when the league average is around 915 to 917, and the Leafs weren't getting that. So it's really hard to look at Jack Campbell as a whole this year and say, yep, give him the money, even though he had good numbers, and he's had really good numbers basically since the 18-19 season. Hell, you could even go back to 17-18. The guy has had pretty consistent numbers, better numbers as he got to the Maple Leafs in terms of more games and playing almost 50 games this year, being a true starting goaltender. He's looked pretty good. But again, the Maple Leafs were an incredible team. The most points he's ever got, the most wins, whatever. Like, this is the best Leaf team that they've ever had. Still got bounced in the first round because of some shaky goaltending and some bad play and some pretty brutal officiating. Now it's like, what do you do with Jack Campbell? Do you think that he's better than John Gibson? Because what we need to know about John Gibson, and what you need to know if you're a huge Gibson fan, is that sure, the Anaheim Ducks haven't been that great, but neither has his numbers. He played in 56 games this year. The guy plays a ton, and he hasn't had really good numbers in a few seasons. Now, again, the Ducks have been a bad team, and he's had some really good stretches as a starting goaltender, but you kind of need to have better numbers than over 3 goals a game and a .904 save percentage, especially when you're making over $6 million. Now, I want to take you over to a tweet that I seen with some fans arguing here on Twitter, and Rick Calder he's usually, I believe I see his tweets quite often just because I remember that picture. But Stolars and Gibson are both on the same team. They're both the Ducks goaltenders. Now, look at these numbers, but I want you to take it with a grain of salt, and I'm going to explain why. Stolar's played in 28 games, had 2.73 goals against average, .917 save percentage. The quality start stuff, I'm not too hip to, well, not hip. I know what it is, but I'm not really going to look at this because of the games played. $950,000 cap hit. Gibson, 56 games played, 3.19 goals against, a .904 save percentage. $6.4 million, 5 more years, and he's the 4th highest paid goalie in the league. Now, here's the thing. When you're looking at these numbers, 28 games played versus 56 games played obviously is a huge gap. You're either going to have a lot of really good games in a row and those numbers could improve, or you could play the same amount as John Gibson in 56 games played and those numbers could get really bad or quite similar. So you have to take that with a grain of salt. And what I see a lot of Leaf fans turning to is that they want to make this big trade. They want to trade Nylander, which, guys, you're not trading William Nylander. He has a way higher value. He's got a better contract for what he's doing right now, over 80 points. Again, it proved that he can perform in the playoffs 2 years in a row. They would have to add to a trade like that. And I know people think I'm nuts. I don't care. William Nylander is more valuable than John Gibson. I'm sick of seeing this Nylander and a first-round pick for Gibson stuff. I thank God every day that you're not an NHL GM because that would be brutal. But what I'm getting to here is that a lot of people are turning to, well, the Ducks are a terrible team. There's tons of shots on net and they can't play defense, whatever. So I'm going to take you to this year's stats on covers.com, and they look at the shots against per game. So the average of shots against per game. You see Anaheim is in the top 10 here, 33 shots per game on average. But the Toronto Maple Leafs allow about 30 shots per game. So those 3 shots per game, sure, they can make a difference. But 3 shots is not exactly that big of a gap. So how much better really is the Toronto Maple Leafs team defense versus the Anaheim Ducks? The Ducks are not a good team, but the shots on net tell a lot of the story. The goalie is obviously only responsible for what the shots are on net. He can only do what he can do with shots coming to the net. Those 3 extra shots could be 3 goals. Who knows? But at the same time, it's like the argument that's being made there is a little bit too much for me. It's a little bit too much. Now, goals against per game, this was a stat I wanted to look at. So Anaheim was averaging around 3.24 goals against per game, and the Leafs were averaging 3.07 goals against per game. The Leafs had bad goaltending for a long time this year. Campbell started off the year really hot, and I've made a video on this before. Maybe I'll link it down below, but you guys can look at it. If you look at game splits and if you look at goals against per game, Jack Campbell started off the season really hot, got to the All-Star break, and he was a little bit shaky before that. But then after that, for months at a time, he was really bad. Like, Campbell was having a brutal season for months at a time. Then he picked it up a little bit, and then in the playoffs, he was hot and cold. He would have a good game, a bad game, good game, bad game, back and forth, and then that's just it. So goaltending is clearly an issue for this Leafs team. The defense has improved a little bit, but I don't know if John Gibson makes this Leafs team any better or if the Leafs just need to find a better backup goaltender. They had Shalgren, who wasn't that good this year, and I know Leaf fans say, oh, he was great. Look at his numbers. Shalgren's not ready for the NHL yet, and I love him, but he's not ready for the NHL. And Peter Mrazek was not good, injury prone, whatever, and Campbell did not play a full great season. I'm sorry, he just didn't. I'm just being brutally honest. But the Leafs need a starting goaltender in Campbell, or if you're bringing in Gibson, you need to have a solid backup goaltender to take on some of those games, because I don't want to play Gibson 60 games like he does in Anaheim, and I don't want to play Campbell for 50 games plus like he's doing in Toronto, because at this moment, their numbers don't say that they can play that many games and give you that many good games. It's not going to happen. So this is what I just hypothetically looked at if the Leafs were to re-sign Timothy Liljegren and Rasmus Sandin to bridge contracts because they're restricted free agents, and trade Hall, Mrazek, and Kerfoot. Now, I'm not saying any of these pieces wouldn't be involved in any of those trades. I'm just giving you a hypothetical. Again, I'm going to look right at you. This is not what I'm thinking is going to happen. This is a hypothetical to look at money in versus money out. So you would have Bunting, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Robertson, Engvall getting re-signed to $1.8 million, Kampf, Colin Blackwell being re-signed at 1.1, Wayne Simmons, and Nick Abruzzese. So Abruzzese and Robertson would be the two call-ups, and then you have to get somebody else. Morgan Rielly, TJ Brody, Muzzin, Liljegren, Giordano, Rasmus Sandin, and then John Gibson, and you're seeing Erik Källgren. Now, the reason why I'm doing that, and this is why it's difficult, even trading Hall, Mrazek, and Kerfoot, the Leafs would have only $3.2 million to get maybe a better backup and an impact forward. And I know some people are going to say impact forward. Like, why would they have to do that? This is the problem. Unless you're trading Jake Muzzin and keeping Justin Hall, then you save about $3 million. So you trade Muzzin, you bring Hall back, you move Sandin up in the lineup, you get a few extra $1 million. Then it makes a little bit more sense, which I'm wondering if we can do, or this thing is going to time out. We'll see. Oh, yeah, of course it did. So it timed out. Let's see if I refresh it, if it works. All right, so we put Muzzin over here, you bring Hall back over, and you run with this. So now you've traded Mrazek, Kerfoot, and Jake Muzzin, and you give yourself $6 million. So sure, the Leafs could probably get another forward and maybe a backup, and the forward could be worth around $4 to $5 million, and then $1 million backup or whatever, however you want to shake it up. But if you're not trading Jake Muzzin, which I don't think the Leafs would want to do, you're stuck with not a ton of money to be playing with here. And the biggest problem with the Toronto Maple Leafs going into this offseason was that last year they didn't acquire a impact top six forward at the deadline. They want to do that this year. They want to acquire somebody, who knows if it's at in the offseason or at the deadline, but they want to get an impact player, whether it's on the blue line or it's in the forward core, and they wanted to go with a goaltender that could get them some wins, but also have a stronger tandem. I know it's a lot to think of right now, and you can mix and match those different pieces and see which one would fit, or which ones that the Leafs would actually be able to acquire. But the Toronto Maple Leafs can't rely on just making a John Gibson trade and then going, okay, cool, now what? They have to look at this roster and be really creative, because getting a goaltender that's worth almost $6.5 million is going to make it really tough on them to acquire an impact forward or a power forward, however you want to say it, and maybe even upgrade your blue line. And I've said it before, the Leafs need to get a goalie that's in the $5 million range, or maybe a little bit less if you can find one, and I'll make a video on that that's coming up. But the Leafs really need to find an impact player, whether now or at the deadline. They don't have to do it, but they need to find an impact player that's going to get them over the hump of even just the first round. We've gone bargain hunting for too long. The Leafs need to get somebody who's an impact player. If you clear out cap space and you're able to acquire somebody at the deadline, you have to do it. And the Toronto Maple Leafs need to figure it out, because acquiring John Gibson, sure, maybe, who knows, maybe he reclaims himself and he's amazing in Toronto, and it looks so much better. But is that a risk that you're willing to take for $6.4 million? That's a big risk to take. I like John Gibson, but it's going to have to be some tinkering, especially I've traded Mrazek, Kerfoot, and Hall, and it's still difficult for them to fit that money in. So let me know what you guys think down below. This video is way too long. If you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Join. Oh my God, I just kicked my camera. I do apologize for that. I need to go. This video is too long. I love and appreciate you guys as always. Go Leafs go. Peace.